I think most of you know that I have some background in coaching, participating in doing theater. So this one hits close to home for a bunch of reasons. If you have not seen Arthur Miller's The Crucible, it's this play, came out in the 50s. It's one of those plays that a lot of high schools read and put on. It's ubiquitous. Everyone has some connection with some production of The Crucible, whether you were in it or you saw it or you read it, whatever. So in Georgia, in Fannin County, Georgia, the Fannin County High School was putting on this show as their spring play. It's like the big production. The people involved spend months getting this thing ready. And, recently they were supposed to put on 2 productions of this show. And if you don't know anything about The Crucible, it is basically a story about the time of the Salem witch trials, but it's also an allegory to what was happening in real life at the time with McCarthyism. And it goes to show you what happens when people are falsely accused of something horrible. And it's really hard to defend against accusations when all you've got is I didn't do it and you can't prove it, but the stain of the allegation is on you for a really long time. Well, if you don't know this show and you haven't seen it, here's something else you should know. If you find the play, the very first scene opens up to a bedroom where someone is bedridden and sick, and a man is kind of watching over her, and that's the opening scene. And you find out in the play early on, this bedridden girl, she was doing some dancing with a bunch of other women outside at night. And people are like, that was a witch's coven, and they were doing something evil and demonic. And these girls are insisting, no, we're just doing our thing. It had nothing to do with witchcraft or anything like that. But the play opens up, and they refer to that dance, but the play opens up to that scene in the bedroom. Well, this is just a screenshot I found. This is kind of what some people do at the beginning. They open the show with the scene of young women dancing in the circle. And it's yeah, okay, I don't know what they're doing yet, but this is captivating for whatever reason. And we find out why this is a big deal as the show goes on. So the reason I bring that up is a couple of weeks ago, this school, Fannin County High School in Georgia, they put on a production of this, and it's supposed to go on for 2 nights. So Friday night, they perform it for night 1. It's fine, I'm sure. And then on Saturday morning, the school posts something on their Facebook page. And this is what district officials posted. And they said, hey, everyone, night 2 of the production has been canceled. We're not doing it anymore. And this is the reason they gave everyone as to why. Check this out. After Friday's performance of The Crucible, we received several complaints as to an unauthorized change in the script of the play. Upon investigation, we learned that the performance did not reflect the original script. These alterations were not approved by the licensing company or administration. And I won't read the rest of it. Basically, what they're saying is, we didn't realize this, but these students, they did something in this show that is not in the script, and we're not allowed to do that. We bought the rights to perform this play, but part of the contract says you're not going to change anything significant. You can't put on any play. You can't put on Guys and Dolls or Fiddler on the Roof, but change it in such a way that it totally changes the meaning of the work. You know what I mean? Do you all remember a couple of years ago, there was a church in Texas that put on an unauthorized version of Hamilton? They must have spent months working on this thing because it looked and sounded and the costumes were perfect. They had a stage with the moving circular prop thing that moves you around. It was pretty incredible and very costly. It must have been. But one, Hamilton's not available for other people to perform yet. So where the hell did they get all the scripts and songs and all of that? Where did they get that from? But the second thing that was a big deal is they added Jesus to the performance in many different spots. And the thing is, it was illegal for them to do, even if they did it right, the way it was intended. But 2, they made changes to the script that changed the meaning of the play. So on both of those counts, that thing was shut down quickly. But this high school, again, what is this school saying? They're saying this isn't that big of a deal, right? This high school is saying these kids made changes to the production that are not authorized, and we would get in trouble for that. So the last sentence here, the second performance of the Crucible could not occur because we were no longer covered by a copyright agreement. And they say, look at the contract says you can't make any changes, blah, blah, blah. And then just to ward off complaints of people saying you're trying to censor those kids, look at what they say at the very bottom here. The approved and purchased script is taught in English classes at the high school, but it's not required. Basically saying, yeah, look, we're not afraid of this play. We offer it in our English classes, but we're just saying this performance cannot go on. And what the hell were they talking about? Because again, the students involved in the production were like, we didn't make any big changes to the play. We're not talking about some kid went off script accidentally. They're saying like, what did we change that was such a big deal? And none of these people had any idea. And it turns out the answer that the school was giving is that the opening scene in this high school production of the play was young girls dancing around in a circle, doing what some people would accuse them doing what some people would consider witchcraft. By the way, if you've seen movie versions of The Crucible, the movie's also open with that scene. And by the way, I did a brief search on YouTube because there are full performances, high school performances of The Crucible. They're on YouTube. I found at least 6 and that was with 5 minutes. And then I'm like, I made my point. I'm done. That open their productions with the dancing. So it's not weird, even if it's not in the script, because they're not talking. They're interpreting what the play is. It gives people something to draw the audience into the production, and then you're going to explain it later on. So clearly, it's never been a problem anytime anyone else has opened the show with that particular scene. It's referred to in the dialogue. It's not a big deal that they added that in. Again, bottom line is this was an interpretive choice. It's not a big deal, right? And it's not a unique decision because plenty of people do this. So that means there are 3 big problems with what the district said. Number 1 is that it seems like Broadway Licensing, the company that owns the rights to The Crucible, they did not see this as a problem, at least not when everyone else did their productions of it. In fact, there was a video posted online by the mother of one of the actors in the show where she called Broadway Licensing. And it's a long conversation, but basically the person on the other end of the line is, hey, is this thing about Georgia? Because we've been getting a lot of calls about that today. And this mother's like, yeah, it is. And the person on the other end of the line, who is just a staffer, maybe they don't have theater experience necessarily, but they're listening to the mother explain what happened in the show. And the staffer's basically saying, that doesn't sound like a violation, but I don't make the final call on this thing. But also, the staffer said, if there were any concerns, the company would have warned the director in advance. It seems kind of weird that they would take the nuclear option of shutting down a high school production of The Crucible between nights 1 and 2. Like, this is not the Broadway version of it where they might be paying attention to what changes are made in the script. It's a high school show. Literally no one outside the high school is paying attention to it. No offense to those students. You know what I mean? So even the company was like, this seems kind of far-fetched. The second problem with the school's statement is that if the school had a problem with the dancing scene, couldn't you just remove it from the play? A local news team asked students about that. Check out this statement from a news report. Here's what one drama student said. Since the scene being altered was the issue, we could have just removed it out of the play and continued on, and then it would be 2 hours and 58 minutes long instead of 3 hours. So even the student, very sarcastic, saying we could have removed the 2 minutes from the show if that's what you had a problem with, but the school did not even give students that option. Third problem with the school's statement is that they made no reference, nothing. There was no mention of how the director of the show was removed from her position about 2 weeks before the performance went on. I found that out through different news outlets. Basically, one reporter said let me see if I could find this here. This is how one reporter put it. Here we go. It is important to note that the production was proceeding without the supervision of the drama teacher at the high school who had departed 2 weeks earlier. Some said sorry, I said she earlier. Some said he was forced to resign. Others said fired, leaving the students to complete work on the show themselves. So I don't know what that is all about, but that means the students went without an adult director for the last 2 weeks, which are the busiest 2 weeks of their rehearsal schedule. And look at the very end of this paragraph, though. The remaining rehearsals, with the purportedly offending staging of the dance, had been repeatedly performed with administrative personnel present in a supervisory role. So for whatever reason, the drama supervisor, the director of the show, was no longer with the production for reasons unknown. So like the principal or an assistant principal or someone like that was just watching over while a student director took over the show and they finished their rehearsals. That means they performed this dance scene many times over, and no one in administration said anything until after the play went on stage. So that's the other thing that seems like a weird thing not to bring up, right? Just, it's so strange. So the school canceled the entire production, despite months of preparation by the students and the crew members and plenty of time for administrators to resolve their copyright problems, if there were any, which there were not. I heard various reports that the students performed the second night of the show at a different venue, like a local theater said, come do it here, which sounds great. But actually, the copyright agreement they signed said you can perform 2 performances of the show at your high school, not anywhere else. So they did not perform the Crucible at another place. I believe they did perform some other things, maybe monologues. They had prepared for a different thing. They performed on night 2. They just didn't do the show. They practiced. Because theater kids are nothing if not adaptable. But then it leaves the question of why is the school shutting this whole thing down? Right? And this is where the local news was trying to figure out what the hell was actually going on here. And so this is what one news outlet put. They spoke to one of the students in the show. Originally, we were told that somebody made a complaint about the show that it was demonic and disgusting. So some parent just whined about it, so they shut it all down. That's messed up. Here's that another reporter, Abigail Ridings, the senior who was president of the drama club and was directing the production because the adult stepped away for reasons unknown, told a similar story. I walked into my mom's bedroom Saturday morning, the night after our first show, and she told me that the show had been canceled, that she just got off the phone with my principal. He said that certain people had to repent after watching the show as a joke, and that it was canceled due to parent complaints. That doesn't sound like a joke, apparently. Asked about the specific nature of the complaints, as explained to her mother, she elaborated, saying the play was too evil and disgusting and things like that. What the hell are we talking about? And why do these random parents have veto power over a high school production of anything, really? There was also another video posted by the guy who played the lead male role in the play, just a senior, basically saying this is all really absurd. And this was his last show as a senior. He wanted to go out with a bang, and he missed his opportunity to do that because he didn't get to do this role the way he had hoped it would go. And that he was also speaking for some of his classmates, just very well-spoken theater kids. Every time I saw one of those students quoted or a video they made about this situation, all of them just wildly mature and clearly more mature than the adults who were trying to shut this all down. By the way, that senior guy, the lead in the production, he was also one of the leads in the school's production of Hadestown, the musical, which they did last August. That's a show literally about hell, but no one complained about that one, surprisingly. Like, the opening song is about the road to hell. I don't get it. Howard Sherman is a guy who writes about the arts, but I love the way he summed this up in a report about this. This is what he said at the very top here. So it seems that the play about witch hunts about the persecution of people out of hysteria, despite being an acknowledged American classic widely taught in high school classrooms and performed frequently on high school stages, had provoked the same moral persecution it portrayed as unjust. Yeah, like the result is that the people who need to see this play the most, which is like conservatives in a very Republican area, they are continuing to spread the very ideas Arthur Miller was trying to warn people against. And the students who spent months preparing this show have now been taught a very valuable lesson by the adults who are supposed to look out for their best interests, which is that if you dare to challenge anyone's thinking, the adults will do everything in their power to shut you up. Like, it's the worst possible message a high school student should be taught on their way out the door. It's ironic, especially because Fannin County High School, if you look up their school online, they're the home of the rebels. Their mascot is the rebel. And here are some kids apparently doing something rebellious, and the school's like, stop it. I guess the beautiful thing is that the students showed just how much better they are at dissecting the nuance of all this than the people who are paid to educate them. I'll leave you with one last thing, because I went on a search on Broadway licensing site. If you go to the company's website that owns the copyright to the Crucible, it's Broadway licensing. You could see it in the upper left of your screen. And they own a subsidiary, Dramatists Play Service. They also have this other play that people can buy the rights to if they want to perform it. And it's called Kingdom City. And if you look at the description, look at this. When displaced New York director finds herself in Kingdom City, Missouri, she reluctantly agrees to direct a high school production of The Crucible. As the play unlocks the students' dark secrets, a local youth minister threatens to cancel the play, creating a firestorm in this small conservative town. Inspired by actual events that occurred in 2006, this play strives to present an even-handed examination of the fears and concerns that arise when the welfare of children is at stake. And I'm just saying, if this school is looking for a production to put on next year, you might want to try that one, because it seems like it would be a documentary at this point. So anyway, I'm going to pause there. I'll take any questions you have before I move on to another story. Isn't that wild? It's a great production, plus it's socially relevant. So of course I can see where this is going. So true. And this is true about anything that actually depicts like metaphorical witch hunts in whatever way you want to do it, whether it's like the Laramie Project about an anti-gay hate crime. That one gets shut down repeatedly. Like, I know we talk a lot about censorship of books, but there is also a very serious concern people should have about the censorship of theater that is going on at a lot of high schools across the country too, because for the same reasons you see books getting banned by right-wing zealots, they're going after high school productions too, because what's art? What is theater? It's a way to challenge your thinking in a really entertaining way. And challenging people's thinking is not what a lot of these people want to do. You can't tell kids they can't dance. Did you learn nothing from Footloose? Another play they could put on if they wanted to do like a theatrical version of that. But yeah, like if you're telling kids they can't put on this show, they're going to speak out against it. And thankfully, with social media, they have more ways of speaking out about this than ever before. So even if the play does not go on, those students are getting the last word on this in some ways. Guess what? Public school administrators can be conservative fundies. I work support in the public school system in Michigan. It's completely true. Yeah, not all administrators are like the heroes we ought to be applauding. Sometimes that you often hear about right-wing zealots running for the school board so they could shut things down and have all the power they want. But sometimes those same people are in those positions of power as a staffer, and they can do things like this as well. Wasn't The Crucible or Arthur Miller funded by WPA Arts grants? Oh, that's interesting. I do not know if that's true. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know the answer to that. But it would be interesting if this was a government funded, if he got a grant, if Arthur Miller got a grant by the government to end up writing this play about government persecution for dumb reasons.